So the festive season is upon us, which then means that you should have already started planning your finances for 2020, right? In actual fact, the golden rule is you do not plan for January 2020 in December. You plan for it beginning of February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. Then in December you relax because you've got all your ducks in a row and you are ready for 2020, especially January, because we know that it can get a little bit crazy in January. My name is Nicolette Mashila, and remember that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you are looking for financial advice, please speak to somebody who is certified and registered with the FSCA. And I'm so sorry, I have been MIA. I'm really pushing all my efforts into resting and also finishing off the book. So it will be coming out in March 2020. I'm quite excited about it. I'm putting my entire heart into it. But let's jump into how do you start planning for next year, 2020, if you missed the boat in February this year. I think the first and most important thing to remember, number one, is the fact that you need to know your numbers. There are too many of us who are walking around not sure of what our numbers are, not actually entirely knowing what our financial situation looks like. When you know your financial situations, you make one, purposeful financial driven decisions. Number two, you know where to fix and where not to fix. Right now, you guys have been hearing me the whole year. There's certain things that I don't believe in. I don't believe in gimmicks. I don't believe in trying to swindle people into managing their money well. I believe in giving people the right tools so that they can manage their money. And I think so the question is, what are the numbers that you are actually supposed to know? I think for me, there are three different numbers that you should know. The first number is you need to know your credit score, right? It's important to understand how your credit score is built, how your credit score is built, how it is managed, how it's improved, and how to get it repaired if it is in a situation, right? So it's very, very important that you know what your credit score is, because your credit score basically is your ticket to access to credit. And I think, please, we need to do away with this thing of trying to make credit the devil. The more we teach people about credit information and give people credit knowledge and credit education is the better, because then people can use credit to their advantage. So very, very important is to know your credit score and know your credit rating. Make sure that you know where you are. Are you still in the building phase? And if you are in the building phase, what are some of the things that you can use to be able to build your credit score? Are you in the managing phase because you're in a good space for your type of income and your debt ratio, that you kind of know how to manage your debt, and that is paying on time, paying every single time, and making sure that you don't do unnecessary credit inquiries, and making sure that your identity is protected and that somebody doesn't use your identity to open up credit agreements or credit lines, right? And then the second thing is, how then do you improve your credit if things are going badly? But the only way you will know how to improve is if you actually do look at your credit report. Now, people like ClearScore give it to you every single month. It's not just ClearScore. The guys at Time Bank also, when you download Time Coach, you can get your credit report every single month. And if there's a change, they will give you a text or send you a text to tell you that something has changed on your credit scoring or on your credit report, right? And then the other thing is, if you need to repair your credit score, it's important for you to know which are the areas that are being detrimental to your credit score, or which are the areas that you might be doing certain things that you are not sure of that are actually hurting your credit score. Right, now that's your first number that you need to know. The second number that you need to know is your income to debt ratio. It's important to understand that in the country and the economy that we live in, most of us are going to need to use debt, but it does not mean we need to be dependent on debt. It's important for you, one side, to have an emergency account, and on the other side, if you are going to be using debt, using it responsibly. People speak about bad debt and good debt. I think debt is debt, and it's important, and I know I've spoken about good debt and bad debt before, but it's important for you to understand what debt is, because even good debt can become bad debt. Because, for instance, something like a car is supposed to be seen as good debt because there's an asset that is attached to that debt. And essentially, when you are buying a car, you might be buying a car because you need it for a job, or you need it to create more money or making opportunities. But what type of car are you buying? The moment you jump to buying a car that you actually cannot afford, it means that you are actually lurking in the spaces of bad debt. So that's why it's important for first and foremost to forget the classifications and rather focus on understanding how to use debt to the best of your ability, how to negotiate for a good rate when it comes to your debt. And remember, it's important to know that the banks and the credit providers need us because they see us as an investment. So they will make sure that if you can qualify for credit, they will give you credit at the best possible rate. Remember, they work on a margin, right? The repo rate is 6 point something, right? And then the prime lending rate is 10.25. So they need to work in that sweet spot and that margin to be able to make their profit. So it's important because remember, the repo rate is what the Reserve Bank borrows their money at or lends their money at, and the prime lending rate is what they lend us money at. That's like the starting point. So if they're giving you something like 12%, it means that they've got 6 point whatever percent to work with up until 12% as where they actually make their profit. So it's important for you to remember that you can negotiate the interest rate that you get given, but also it's not just about negotiating the interest rate, it's also about negotiating the term. So getting the short term as possible, but also with the less interest rate as possible. And also it's important not to have too many credit lines because essentially you are paying administration fees, you are paying fees to the National Credit Act, which is I forgot what they're called, but there are also a lot of fees. And then you've also got bank accounts, different bank accounts that also incur their own fees. It just becomes a mess. So I would say consolidate if you can, but consolidate smartly, because when you consolidate, make sure that you're getting a lower interest rate. Make sure that the term of whatever it is that you're consolidating actually also decreases. Right. So that's your debt to income ratio. And I think the third number that you should know is your net worth, because ultimately we should all be striving to improve our net worth every single year, whether it is improving in terms of it's increasing or in terms of you actually minusing the liabilities that you've got. Remember, your net worth is assets minus liabilities. So your assets would be property if you've got it and you've paid it off cash. It would be your unless obviously if you took it on a loan, but it's appreciated in terms of value, so it's got a little bit of equity on it. It would be your livestock. It would be your cars if you've got them as assets and you're using them to make money. It would be any amount of money that you've got in your bank account. That would essentially be your assets, right? And then you need to minus your liabilities. So where you owe somebody, where in actual fact it's that thing that you've got is taking money out of your pocket, that would constitute as a liability. And then you get your net worth. It's important to grow your net worth. That's when you start moving from being financially stable to financial rich, to financial wealthy, and then to financial freedom. So it's important to know those three numbers. 1, your credit score. 2, your debt to income ratio, and then thirdly, your net worth. So that's step number 1, knowing your financial situation. I think step number 2 for next year is having 2 or 3 major financial goals that you're working towards. When you know what the bigger picture is supposed to look like, it's easier to make the smaller decisions speak to your bigger picture. So it's important for you at the beginning of the year to plan your purchases. A lot of people make impulsive purchases and end up getting themselves into a bad situation of what looked like a good situation, but it becomes essentially a bad situation at the end. I always say things like buying big purchases like a house need time. It's not something that you wake up and say, oh, next week I'm gonna go buy a house. You know how Twitter people do? I mean, they spend the whole month trying to negotiate for a car rate, and then they tell us the day before, oh, I feel like I should get myself an AMG, and then boom, the next day someone's got an AMG. Please, man, we know you've been spending the whole month planning for that thing. Look, please, it takes so long first and foremost to buy a car and then to get it delivered to you. This 24-hour thing that you guys are making us believe, please stop it. All right? Those are the things that make other kids feel like they're not doing well financially. Please. Okay, so I digress. Going back again, remember it's important. It's very, 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 very important to have financial goals, because financial goals lead you and actually they give you direction in terms of what type of financial decisions you should be making. I think the third thing for me specifically is to make sure that I can manage and I can survive financial shocks, right? A lot of us, our finances are not bad. It's just that we don't have enough protection and enough, what's the word that I'm looking for? enough insurance or cover for when a financial shock happens. And that's why it's easy for us to spiral out of our good financial habits when something that is financially putting you under pressure happens, and then you jump and you do that thing, and all of a sudden now your finances are no longer in order because your mom broke her leg, and so it's important to keep those things in mind. I think the fourth thing that you need to remember for going into 2020 is to make sure that you plan things and plan them accordingly, but not just plan them. Look at how a certain financial decision is going to have an impact on your entire life holistically. A lot of us will look at buying a house, and then we look at the additional costs, but we don't factor in what does it mean now when I've got this house. If I've moved out of my 2-bedroom and I've moved into a 3-bedroom, it might be cheaper as a whole. I might be paying maybe 9,000 rand for a 2-bedroom, and then I'm paying 11,000 rand for a 3-bedroom, and it looks great because I've got 3 bedrooms, but it's more expensive in terms of furniture. You now need to get your helper to come in more than twice a week, 3 times. You are, you cleaning, electricity consumption goes higher. So there's a lot of financial implications for every single financial decision that you're making. If you are deciding to take up life insurance and they quote you on a life insurance, you gotta ask yourself, this now 1,000 rand or however much your life insurance is going to be, that's going to be coming out of my bank account every single month going forward, how does it what type of implications will it have on the rest of my life? Will I still be able to do some of the things that I've always wanted to do? Because I think a lot of us are very impulsive in terms of making financial decisions, even the good ones, but we don't actually factor in our whole life holistically. You get Wi-Fi and all of a sudden you've got to pay 300, 400 rand every single month of Wi-Fi. Yes, it may be comfortable in the beginning, but it does become a financial implication because there are certain things in your life that you now have to shift, right? And then the next thing that you've got to do, I think, is you've got to be able to recognize your financial peak times and financial off-peak times. Just like going on holiday, certain areas have peak times where the prices go up. You see it obviously even with Uber, Bolt. When when the weather is bad, all of a sudden the prices surge. When the demand is high, the prices surge. So you've also got to understand when are your financial peak times and when are your financial non-peak times or off-peak times. And I always say try and flip them around. For instance, a lot of people, their peak financial times is December. It's a festive season. Everybody is happy. Everybody is excited. People are working on your ego. You are financially paying for things you shouldn't even be paying for. Unale excitement. The sun is making you pay money. It's hot. Oh my goodness, let's go and buy ice cream. But buying ice cream is not just ice cream on its own. Now you're out there sitting at a restaurant the whole day, and then you're spending money on alcohol. You're spending money on a fan. Dash, cool drink, juice. It just becomes a little crazy. So I always say do your most important things in your off-peak times financially. So off-peak times in terms of even just your environment. How are people are, so travel in January, travel in February. Your family can do a lunch, maybe a Thanksgiving lunch, rather in January instead of doing it on the 25th of December. Maybe just go to church, hang around with your family, have a nice and normal everyday day, because Jesus is not going to love you any less just because you did not celebrate on Christmas with a big family feast. It's honestly, nothing is going to change, right? But you can do a Thanksgiving in January, and it's it's an off-peak time for finances, an off-peak time for retailers. Things go back, and some of them even go on sale. So things become a little bit cheaper at certain times of the year. If it's your birthday, birthdays are also a peak time. So know yourself. You don't have to celebrate your birthday on your birthday. It's your birthday. It's not going anywhere. You can decide when your birthday can be celebrated. It's okay, I promise you. So it's very important that going forward, especially for me, I've planned in 2020, I'm going to be aware of my financial peak times, because that's where I spend quite a lot of money, right? And then the last thing that I learned from Ramit Sethi, who writes the blog and the book, I Will Teach You How to Be Rich, is something that is probably highly contested. And it's about lifestyle inflation needs to be something that you embrace, because it's going to happen. The you today who's earning 3,000 rand per month, 10,000 rand per month, 15,000 rand per month is going to change when you start earning 25,000 rand per month, 50,000 rand per month. And it really purely is because of how your circumstances are looking like. What's important is that you don't allow other people to put you under pressure to make certain financial decisions, but you allow your life and the quality of your life to be the reason why you're changing your life. I'm sure that when you're earning 100,000 Rand per month, there's absolutely no need, or probably not even time, for you to be making 3 meals a day like you were when you were earning 15,000 Rand a month. Because first and foremost, look, the situation did not call for you to be buying food every single day when you're earning 15,000 Rand a month, because you really actually cannot afford it. But when you're earning 100,000 Rand a month, you can afford to hire a chef and spend far more time, maybe using that time to make more money, because now your time, the value of your time when you're earning 100,000 Rand kind of changes than when you're earning 25,000 Rand, right? So it's important for you to embrace lifestyle inflation, but also it's important for you to try and stay away from the gimmicks. You know, there's a lot of, in the financial space, especially personal finance, a lot of gimmicks that people try and force down our throats. Hey, you know, buy less coffee. And I know I've also been very guilty of buying into this narrative. Buy less coffee, make your own scaffteen. Okay, there are people that need to make their own scaffteen, and there are people that can buy from the cafeteria or can get somebody else to make them those, to come and drop off healthy meals every single day, right? It just depends on how much time you've got on your hands. So I think let's move away from gimmicky things where you're trying to save more money. I think everybody needs to have an emergency account, everybody needs to have their money invested, and then everybody needs to enjoy their money to a certain extent, right? So I would say rather learn how to spend wisely, because if you look at really wealthy people, they've got all the luxuries, but their money doesn't seem to run out. And you've got to ask yourself now the question of why doesn't their money run out? And it's purely because they've learned how to spend wisely. They know what they are spending on, why it's important for them to spend on it. In actual fact, they're spending, and how they spend it because they've learned how to spend wisely is what activates their money-making opportunities, because they understand the price tag that is attached to time, and how much time is actually what makes us wealthy at the end of the day. Because if you can maximize your time and create money-making opportunities for every single hour of your day, something in your life is really going to change. You're going to activate so much in your life that it might come as a shock to you. So yeah, that's my 2020. I look forward to 2020. I want to move my net worth to something incredible. I think I did very well this year. I've managed to add on another property. I'm halfway paying off that bond. I'm paying it in big chunks. And yeah, I've decreased my bond on my current house, the one I'm currently sitting in. So my net worth is looking quite healthy. So I think it's important for you to work, because that was my big goal for the year. I wanted to move my net worth at least by 30%, and I've managed to do that. So that for me is really, really exciting. Ooh, so, wow, I need to have a financial goal to fix my English. Right, so yeah guys, let's have a prosperous festive season. I'll do a festive season video, but this one is really important for me because it's important for you to remember that your planning for the year actually starts between February up until January the next year, and then you start planning again in February for the following year. Because if you don't plan, you plan to fail. It's as simple as that. Mwah! I love you guys.